this transit network is designed not only to serve people within the Boulder community, but again, to help with the regional trips as well. So how do we provide top quality transit service for people commuting into Boulder for the work trips that we mentioned? I think a very fundamental component of the transit system and the success has been the EcoPass program. And this is something that works very well for businesses throughout the community that are involved with this within the downtown. Recently, Boulder Valley School District has joined the EcoPass program for their staff and faculty. Obviously, CU, the university, is a very big customer for the EcoPass program, both for students, staff, and faculty. And it's a very important part of our overall transportation demand management strategies, along with other work that we do through, for example, new development. We have what's called a PDM toolkit, where we work with new development projects to identify ways to have new projects come in and be able to take advantage of the EcoPass program, for example, or perhaps look at a station as part of the bike share or the car share, local nonprofits as well. So again, it goes back to that integrated system of how are we looking at all modes of travel together, how are we serving the existing community today, how are we serving new development as it comes in, and how are we continuing to serve the regional trips as well. And leading into that, again, it kind of all circles back to the partnerships, particularly on the regional side. And we have targets, as I mentioned, for the local residents within Boulder. And as part of the work we're doing currently to update the transportation master plan, we're looking at what should the commensurate targets be for the in-commute trips as well. So a lot of studies going on. Tracy is going to be talking about the US 36 project later this morning as well. So a lot that's happening on the regional front to improve those options. Another area of relationships and collaboration with transportation is working with our land use planning, with community planning and sustainability, and how are we looking at, again, at our existing areas as well as new areas and transitioning areas. This is an image of the Boulder Junction area, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that today during your visit. But it's a great transit-oriented development opportunity that's really been taken to the next level by the Boulder community. It's been the city working with RTD, working with the private sector, and working with a lot of different partners to really re-envision what this area of the community can look like. Often, and I'm going to try to rush through this, but we talk about the tale of two cities. There's the western portion of Boulder, which is more the older urban core of the community, as a finer grain transportation network, more walkable, bikeable. You have the eastern part of the community that developed more in a suburban office park, super block size pattern. So projects like Boulder Junction that are coming forward are opportunities to look at the eastern parts of the community, use the lessons learned from downtown Boulder, from the western part of the community, and start looking at ways to apply that. And how do we integrate the EcoPass program, for example, and for new development and mixed-use development, as well as parking management strategies and different land use strategies. So there's a whole story just within the Boulder Junction project we could talk about. And I know that there was interest as well in the funding discussion, because you can't usually talk about transportation without talking about funding. There are those types of things that go hand in hand. And it's certainly a lot of opportunity, a lot of leadership that has been provided by the Boulder community for many years. There's a dedicated sales tax for transportation that's been in place since the 1960s. Again, it goes back to those early years of really having great foresight for the future, and how do we create a way to invest and manage the transportation system. In addition, there's a recent capital bond initiative that was approved by the voters to take care of some key capital projects and maintenance projects. So there's been a lot of demonstrated investment by the Boulder community over many, many years to develop and implement the transportation system that you see today. And certainly a lot of opportunities going forward. We're always looking for places to leverage the funding, obviously looking at grants and partnerships, those types of things as well. But certainly Boulder is not immune to the other financial challenges that cities across the country are facing, particularly in the area of operations and maintenance expense. With the sales tax that's been in place for many years, what we're seeing is increasing inflation, which basically reduces the buying power of those dollars. So as our operations and maintenance costs are going up, that's creating less and less funding that's available for capital investment. So we're looking at a lot of different strategies on how do we manage that future, how do we look for additional and innovative funding sources to augment the funding that we have today. One of the ideas that's on the table is a transportation maintenance fee or transportation maintenance tax. We're currently having a community conversation about that. Lots of different pros and cons and options. There certainly aren't any easy answers in transportation funding, but it's definitely a challenge that we need to continue to work on and continue to maintain the high-quality transportation system that Boulder has today, and certainly continue to work toward our long-term goals. With that, I'm going to try to go really quickly through this part, but again, the Transportation Master Plan includes very specific targets and measurable objectives, and I think it's really important that the community has invested in tracking that data. Over 20 years of data, and I'm circulating some copies of reports. One is the report on progress, and the other is the Safe Streets Boulder report. They're both great examples, and they're available on our website, of how important it is to have a data-driven process. But in order to have that, you need to be collecting the data, and the city has been doing that for many years, and again, investing in this complete street system. And the results, I think, are outstanding. When you look at the comparison of Boulder to the Denver metro area, as well as to the national average, we have a much higher usage of biking, walking, and transit use, far above any of the other agencies there. And we want to continue that trend. Again, we have very ambitious goals for our greenhouse gas and reductions and other community goals, and we need to keep this process moving forward. We track the ridership on transit, both the local routes and the regional routes, and you can see over time as the different innovative routes have come online, the bump in the ridership over time. So again, how do we keep that process going? And this is the data tracking that the community's been doing over the last 20 years on that single occupant vehicle mode share. So for example, our target is to be at 25% by 2025. We're headed the right direction. That's the good news. The line is going down, which is what we want. But we're really not on track to hit that target by 2025. So as part of our TMP update this year, we're asking the question, what should we be doing to help change the slope of that line and help us get closer to that target by 2025? I think it's also important that the community's been tracking data on what if Boulder didn't do this? What would the implications have been if Boulder had made a different decision back in 1989? And this slide, I think, is helpful to say that the blue is this 1994 vehicle miles traveled threshold. We're holding that line, which is great, and it's a result of all of the work and investment that's been made. The green is what would happen if we hadn't. We'd be more in line with the other communities around us in the Denver metro region, and that's a significant difference. And I think it really helps to show the payoff and that return on investment that the community has made. A lot that's happening as we're moving forward. Again, the model is all about continuous improvement, a lot of great work that's been done, and a lot more to do. And it all centers back to how do we integrate our transportation system with our climate goals, with our economic vitality goals, and making sure that we're developing a system that works for today as well as for the long-term future. So that's kind of the speed version. Contact information is here, and again, I'd be more than glad to talk with you more about the transportation aspect. Are there any questions?
Yeah, any question? Aside from the environmental and kind of the benefits of through transportation, have you done analysis on the economic benefits? Like when you do complete streets and areas, how maybe even improve decrease the vacancy rate of offices and increase retail?
I'm not aware of a particular study on a particular corridor. I'm not sure if we've done that level of analysis, but that's something I think would be really important to look at. And we do track and I didn't include all of the different metrics, but we do track the level of investment that we're making relative to employment growth within the community, so that we're making sure that, for example, the increased investment in transit is tracking with the job growth in the community over time or the bike facilities. But I think that's a good suggestion.
And then what about the policies in regards to complete streets that you've enacted that help to support the successes you've shown?
There's numerous policies on the complete streets. Again, it's pervasive throughout the planning process, throughout our capital project development, through the project management steps. It's really a universal approach to how we do things. So there's a lot more detail on that I'd be glad to share.
Okay, we're going to have to, sorry, we're going to have to cut it off. Can you make your slides available? Can you send them to maybe Patrick, and then we'll move them on, and then make them available, and your contact information.
Let me say there are half a dozen people out here that are drooling about this. So thank you so much. It's very kind to have something to remember.